Thanks very much for joining us live at Pravada. This is the second in a program of two events looking particularly at ESG and social impact. And we're going to be looking here at I suppose some of the steps that people can take to maximise their own impact on either the kind of carbon usage or as well on the kind of social impact side. Really super panel here for you today. So we have Joost Leenders, founder and CEO of Verisol. We have Paul Wessels, who's founder of Blue Module. We have Rutger Schur, who's Chief Investment Officer for Park B. And Rutger, thanks very much for hosting us here. And we also have Anna de Jong, who's Chief Executive Officer for Merin. Anna, maybe let's just start with you. What are you seeing there in terms of the technology innovation side, and I suppose how that's driving some of the changes?
So we used a smart building platform called Spectral. They collect data from outside and inside, and together with that data, the heating system is used more energy efficient. So that's one example of using data. Another thing is that we like working together with tenants, and we talk about tenants, and that's also talking about data. So it's a broad picture. It's not only data and technical thing, it's also talking with your tenants and your clients. So data in the most broader spectrum is something we use to make it more measurable, and instead of fake marketing, it's collecting data and having straight targets, and they use data to for technical reasons and for occupier things.
And how much of that drive is coming from your occupiers, Anna?
At the moment, we have 17 buildings where we have this smart building platform. We talk with the tenants and we say, well, what do you want to pay for that? And we also pay it. So we have a collection, we do it together with them. So we pay 50% and the tenants pay 50%, and together we use that system. So I would say that in these 70 buildings with 400 tenants, the tenants really like this initiative, and they really like to collect data and work together with us. So the broad answer is yes.
Okay, good. And Joost, it'd be interesting to come from you. You know, you're working mainly there in the logistics side with your solution. It'd be good to just get a sense of because there's a lot of talk around ESG and that everybody wants to do good. But what are some of the practical solutions? It might be interesting just to drill down and find out what that means, both for the investors, the building owners, but also the occupiers.
What we see is the usage of the logistics building is rising by automatic picking systems, electric cars they have to use, and the heating systems from a heat pump. So the usage is around doubled in a short way of time now. What we do is together also with Spectral, we do a lot with them, is making a building specific energy system that the usage is as equal as the production.
And is the demand there coming from the tenants? Because obviously there's an advantage for them in terms of lower energy costs. You know, what are some of the aspects that make it I suppose a positive thing?
If you look in the UK, they are much more advanced. So, like a client like McDonald's, they cannot rent the big DC anymore if it's not green within 1.5 years. Amazon has the Amazon Nature Pledge. They're not coming into the Hello buildings when it's not completely energy zero. So tenants are more and more advanced. But what we see now is, especially by free float companies, stock listed or non-stock listed, that the international accounting rules are going to be so heavy with their brief 8, brief 9, and how they have to collect money, that they must. So from regulatory, it's going to be mandatory, and that is shifting in 2 years.
Maybe you know Peter Bakker. He's, I think, the leader from the World Sustainability Board, and he once said that the key to the biggest sustainable transition is coming from accountants. And actually that is true. You can't make this transition without measuring it. And the same goes for tenants of buildings, like the example Joost gave. But I think we're now in a phase that also for the owners of the building, like NSI, but also other big pan-European or global real estate investors, they need to disclose their data, their footprint, and see what kind of value they make. That is what their investors will demand. It's going on already for say 10 years, but we are far beyond the stage of greenwashing. We want to show actual results there, and measuring and certifying that is key to make this transition.
Yeah, talking about tenants, I really recognize what you both are saying. 10 years ago, I had discussions with big tenants, and I tried to enforce them to do some sustainability capex, and then they told me, well, Anna, sorry, we don't have an annual report, so we don't care about sustainability. Nowadays, when we have smaller tenants, they say, well, tell me all about the ESG impact. What are you going to do? Otherwise, I will not come to your building. So that's the difference between 10 years ago. So you see a large improvement of the awareness, and that's good, I think.
Okay, good. I'm going to alter it slightly so that if you three share that microphone, and then we'll be, which is good. It'd be interesting just to pick up a little bit on challenges, Paul. So let's just pick up with you on, I mean, you've been looking at this area, not just from the business that you're running now, but over a long period of time here. What are you seeing as the challenges at the moment, I suppose, to really driving this forward?
Well, yeah, I've been in the business quite a long time. In my former company, Property.nl, we were concerned with gathering information about prices, about pricing in the market, yields, and so forth. So it was all about transparency. And my experience was that it was very difficult for the market to share information. And I think the big challenge for the real estate market is, if you talk about ESG, is sharing information, being transparent. And that's not something which is, let's say, natural to the real estate market. But I think in the increasing regulatory pressure, but also if you look at the market pressure from the let's say the standards which are emerging, like BREEAM, WELL, they are enforcing more transparency in your, and that's the big one.
What we also see is, especially international, is that the discussion, also what we had in Warsaw, was that the S is coming up very rapidly, especially in office buildings, but also the governance. Like, the highest difficulties what we have to create a case is transparency, because no one of the companies, or they let us sign an NDA of this thick to get their power consumptions, but they think it's a company secret, because then you can say how much they produce or this and this. And those regulatories are still in, is very difficult to change the case.
Maybe I'm too positive, but I think that there is a commercial reason for landlords to share information about BREEAM in use, certificates, EPC labels, energy consumption. So I don't see so many challenges like you see. I see that I have a unique selling point if I can tell the people that we have BREEAM in use excellence for the 5 biggest buildings. So why should I not be transparent? So I see a natural reason for landlords like we are to share information and talk about it and not keeping it together. So I don't, most time I agree with you, but this time I don't. We have a commercial reason to share all the information we have, but maybe it's another type of information.
Anna, can I challenge you on that? Because what we have seen, for example, on office asset class, that we have the C-label intervention from the government, and we see that almost half of them is still not certified or labeled yet. I personally fully agree with your view that it's commercially, it has been an excellent business case in the last years. because interest rates were very low. Banks were keen to finance those investments. But why is still half of those buildings not certified, at least to C label? Eh? We don't discuss an E label.
I'm not the right person to ask to, but I really don't understand. But I'm pretty sure that for commercial reasons, in 2 or 3 years, that this will change. I think there's also a discussion: will ESG impact a rent level? Will it impact yield, etc.? These kind of things. I'm pretty sure in 5 years' time, no one will lease a building that's not sustainable. So for commercial reasons, the market will change, I think. But maybe I'm too positive, but I really don't agree. I really don't understand why people at this moment in time don't invest in such a simple, stupid thing as a C level. We focus on A, and I think most bigger institutional investors focus on A level or more, because it's just a small thing. An A level is not everything. But I think that for commercial reasons, the market will change in a few years' time.
And on. The difference is, I think, in offices, it's much more easier to be transparent than in a production facility or in a big logistics. And that is the reason why they are not so transparent. But as you said, on another point, is that if you see how rapidly the financial market is shifting to stranded buildings, so there are now new parties coming up who's buying stranded buildings, bluefields, brownfields, to retransfer them, because it's no.
And if I can add something, I think that there is a huge challenge. If you look at the market broadly, I think there are some major players who are leading the pack, and I think you were one of them. But if you look at the whole how the system is changing towards test, verify, certify, so you have to provide proof all the time. If you look at the leading standards like BREEAM, WELL, Fit Well, but also if you look at regulation, it will require proof through the life cycle of the building, and I think that's a big change.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I thought it was interesting the what you mentioned actually, Joost, in a previous discussion to this, which was that that it's not a nice to have, it's going to be an absolute must, like providing toilets, or the energy side of it, is going to be absolutely critical. It would be good just to, I think, to pick up some of the things, because people may not think, Rutger, that something which is around parking is necessarily something that has kind of wellness ESG credentials. So it'd be interesting just to get a sense from you of how you can have an impact, particularly on a city and working with a city. How are the areas where you and kind of Park B can work together with cities to make those improvements?
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity, because this is actually our biggest challenge. And our biggest challenge is almost, again, what we previously discussed, is measuring the contribution there. And we see that in, say, in WELL or BREEAM, parking is almost zero. But I also see that parking is the most undervalued part of an asset. And I think it's not sustainable to not make better use of the existing space of buildings whilst developing new office buildings next door. So we can help owners of the building, we can help municipalities by making better use of their existing space. And we have some indications, I would say, where we say it can contribute this number of CO2 to the building. But my prime goal for the next few years to have it part in BREEAM or with part in, say, the GRESB accounting.
And it would be interesting. I mean, I noticed that you'd kind of also produced a sort of document for tenants about how they can make also maybe small changes or larger changes that help reduce their footprint. And of course, there's an amount that you as an investor and an owner can do, but actually a lot of it is going to be down to the tenants as well to make those changes. So I suppose, what were some of the key things from that actually tenants can actively do to reduce their CO2 footprint, and support what you're aiming to do as an owner and an investor?
Well, I think in general we believe in working together with partners and with occupiers. We believe that if you really want to achieve the goals, and if you really want to achieve the target, then you should work together with occupiers. So we are constantly talking with them, and we have a constant discussion about energy reduction, about things we can do together. And this booklet, I think you were mentioning the green office, how to green your office, is just a simple, practical book with all small things, with things like using the stairs, just the low-hanging fruit. And to be honest, we made it 3 years ago, and we are updating it at the moment. So I don't know what a new one will, but we believe in improving this book. So it's all about communication, and it's a tool we use to communicate with the tenants, because we believe that together with the occupier we can make a difference. And well, like we said before, you can have a sustainable building, but if it's not used the right way, it's worthless. So that's why we use it just as an angle to communicate with our tenants.
Okay, good. And Joost, it might be interesting just to pick that up from your point of view as well, in your sector, because there, I mean, it was interesting you mentioned there about the increased need for energy. We're going to have increased electrification as well. So there's going to be a huge potential drive for more energy coming from logistics. So I suppose, how much of a role do you think that actually, being able to create your own energy is going to make in that sector in terms of reducing a logistic company's footprint, for example?
It's how to call it, a difficult question to ask, to answer. Also for Park B or for office buildings, the way we do transportation is also going to be changed, because at the moment a car is dirty. Over 5 years a car is clean, because it's driving on energy and maybe cleaning up the air also. So we need more space also for transportation, and we need more electricity. So it's more and more coming, where do you think the most efficient, and with software and with another interpretation of usage, you can make it work together. But it cannot be only one part. It's just like the nature. We need from the rain, the insects, the big animals, all have to work together. And it's the same in this energy question also.
I wanted to pick up a little bit just in the last sort of 5 minutes on the sort of social impact side. And obviously from your point of view, Rutger, the cities are seeing a social impact side in terms of reduced time with cars spent looking for spaces, freeing up spaces on city streets from parked cars. I suppose, how much of a benefit is that to cities? Do they see that as an opportunity and a benefit for them?
From the ESG, I think the S is the most difficult one, and the S is far behind the development we see in governance and in energy. So I think that will be the biggest challenge in the coming years. What we will see with changing behavior of users of buildings, that we will see where we grow from more like monofunction environments or monofunction buildings, that we will grow to more multi-use types of assets, so we can better make use of that space. For example, if an office building of Anne today, what I read and what I also see in my own team is that people are going back to the office only for 2 or 3 days. It means that the building is empty for 3 or 4 days a week, which is way too much. And I think we need to find solutions where we can combine multiple user groups into one asset or into one area. And I think that is the most sustainable thing. And therefore you need to create social connections between those different user groups.
Okay, good. I just wanted, just because we're quite tight on our timing, I just wanted to, I suppose, just ask everybody, we know already, Anna, that you're positive on these things, but let's just start with you. I mean, if we're back again at Pravada in 12 months' time, so Pravada 2023, I suppose, where do we think we'll be? What improvements will have been made? Will the discussion have moved on? What's our sense of that? Do you want to start? We'll start with you, Joost, and then we'll walk around that way. No, that's good.
I hope that there will be, from all the regulations, all the different, like BREEAM well, fit well, but that's S, mandatory, regulatory, that there will upcome a standard. So that I don't know what it's going to be, but everybody is very busy to create a new international standard. There you can say this building is a Z, and therefore is it extremely clean. And this building is in Q, and it has this system in it, so that people very easy can recognize what you are doing, because that's the main problem.
I'm actually very positive in the transition ahead of us, but ironically that is not because I perfectly see that the behavior of, for example, real estate owners is shifting very fast. It's shifting, but I think it can be at a faster pace. I think today's energy prices will make the business case for every sustainable investment even more attractive. So I think most investors will be pushed towards these types of investments because it's a business case. Maybe not because they think it's part of doing good, but it's a very good business case, and I think that's very important. Then again, I don't really care what your driver is to be more sustainable. If it's intrinsic driver or is it a business case driver, for me the most important thing is that you just do that.
What I see is that with the market becoming more difficult, so the time of money which is with extremely low interest rates is gone, means interest rates are going up. The market is facing a more difficult time. So that means differentiating yourself is more and more important. And I think ESG is the main theme, and it will only accelerate.
Well, you asked what do you hope and what do you think, and I hope and think that more people will be aware of the fact that ESG is just a commercial thing to do. And there's a good commercial reason to do it. It has to do with the occupiers, with the future occupiers, with the younger generation. I got 5 daughters, and most of them are more aware of the impact of ESG than I was at that age. And they are the new occupiers of tomorrow. So I think there's a real commercial reason to go ahead, besides the other reasons we already mentioned.
Yeah, I think those are really interesting points there, and for sure ESG is going to be a huge topic, and I think that point around certification and how we can actually move some of these things on, and that then some of the software solutions that actually also help a building can be counted in that. It's not just what the fabric of the building is, but actually how it's operated can actually somehow be included in that, so that everybody gets a more transparent picture of what's happening and how sustainable it is, both for the occupier but also for the city. And I think that those points about wellness are really interesting too. Thanks very much for hosting it here on your stand, Rutger, for Park B. Thank you to everybody for joining us. Really interesting topics, and I look forward to coming back again to Pravada and seeing whether or not we have moved forward as we hope we will. But delighted to see a very positive view here. Thanks very much for joining us. And if you're joining us live, thank you very much for that. And if you're joining us on demand, thank you for watching.